Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into, well, a really fascinating story. It sounds almost like political fiction, The big, beautiful
Yeah.
bill. And this thing, it wasn't just another bill rolling through Congress. It somehow became this huge battleground, maybe the most significant AI regulation fight we've seen in the U.S. recently.
Felt like a real flashpoint.
So our mission here today is to really unpack that whole showdown. This was back in 2025. We want to figure out how this proposed 10-year ban, basically, on state AI laws got shot down. And not just shot down, but defeated 99-1 in the Senate. It's kind of unbelievable.
Almost unheard of, yeah.
And we want to explore what that signals, for where AI governance is heading. Stick with us, because we've got some surprising details, some really unexpected alliances that formed. And we'll clarify how this whole fight over federal power versus state power, well, it actually impacts you as this tech keeps evolving. Okay, so let's start with the name. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, H.R. 1. That's not exactly your standard legislative name, is it?
No, definitely not. It's pretty memorable.
It was this huge 870-page package, and the nickname, it actually came straight from President Trump. He'd been calling for one big, beautiful bill for his agenda, pushed through budget reconciliation.
Right, that process that lets certain budget-related bills pass the Senate with just a simple majority skips the filibuster.
Exactly. And buried deep inside this massive bill, Section 43201, titled Artificial Intelligence and Information Technology Modernization Initiative. That's where the controversial part was hiding.
Yeah, Section 43201, that was the one.
So what was it actually trying to do? What was in that section?
Well, the language was incredibly broad. It proposed this sweeping 10-year moratorium. It would have, and I'm quoting roughly here, prohibited states from enforcing any law or regulation limiting, restricting, or otherwise regulating AI models, systems, automated decision systems, basically anything involved in interstate commerce.
Wow. Okay, so let's unpack this. This wasn't just a small clause in a big bill. It was a massive attempt at federal preemption, stopping states in their tracks.
Exactly. A huge federal override.
What would that have meant, practically speaking, for the states that already had laws on the books?
Oh, the impact would have been immediate and, frankly, enormous. It would have just wiped out existing state laws. Think about laws protecting kids from AI harms, rules about deepfakes, consumer protection measures.
Yeah.
Dozens of states had already put these kinds of things in place. This would have nullified them.
And who was pushing for this? What was the argument for doing it?
Well, Senator Ted Cruz was a key champion. He argued that needless state overregulation was the big problem, that it would hurt the U.S. in competing with China, basically.
Yeah.
The idea was that a single federal standard was needed for economic strength and innovation.
Okay. And important to note, too, this huge bill, it wasn't just about this AI moratorium, right? There was other stuff in there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It wasn't solely focused on regulation. It also set aside about $500 million for the federal government to modernize its own AI systems. And a really significant chunk, $16 billion, was allocated for military AI. That included funding for things like autonomous weapons development.
$16 billion. Okay. But despite those other big items and the arguments from people like Senator Cruz, this AI moratorium part, it just blew up. It triggered something you don't see every day in Washington.
That's right. It really did. It sparked something quite rare in American politics, genuine bipartisan opposition. It just cut across all the usual party lines.
Bipartisan. How wide was this opposition?
It was incredibly broad. You had 40 state attorneys general, Republicans and Democrats, sending letters opposing it. And they were joined by about 260 state lawmakers. Again, an even split between Republicans and Democrats representing all 50 states. It was a unified front from the state level.
Wow. 40 AGs, 260 legislators, and not just state officials, right? There were some, let's say, unexpected figures in Congress who also broke ranks.
Oh, absolutely. That's what made it so fascinating. You had people like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Senator Josh Hawley, folks not typically aligned with, say, Democratic state officials, suddenly on the same side opposing this provision.
So MTG and Josh Hawley lining up with Democratic AGs.
Exactly. And GOP governors finding common cause with conservative senators like Marsha Blackburn. She actually ended up being the one who wrote the amendment that killed the moratorium in the Senate.
Okay, so what was the common thread here? What brought that diverse group together?
What's fascinating here is how core principles like federalism and child safety truly united groups that rarely agree on anything. The argument was pretty consistent across the board. Deep concern about the federal government overreaching into areas traditionally handled by states, what they call state police powers. And, critically, the potential impact on things like keeping kids safe online.
So it wasn't just abstract federalism, it was tied to concrete concerns like child safety.
Precisely. That gave it real political traction back home for these officials.
Now, the tech industry, they must have had a position on this. Folks like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, where did they stand?
Oh, they were definitely in favor of the moratorium. Industry giants like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, they supported it. Sam Altman from OpenAI even testified before Congress. His argument was basically that trying to comply with potentially 50 different sets of state AI regulations would be, well, essentially impossible for companies operating nationally.
Okay, so a practical argument about the difficulty of a patchwork of laws.
Yes, a strong operational case for uniformity, but, and this is the key point, even that powerful industry lobbying, all that money and influence, it just wasn't enough this time. The political pressure building up from the state level, all those AGs and lawmakers throughout the summer of 2025, it just became overwhelming.
So the state-level pushback, grounded in federalism and child safety, actually outweighed the tech industry's push for uniformity.
It did. In this case, those core principles proved more politically potent. The tide had turned against the moratorium.
Which sets the stage for this dramatic vote in the Senate. What actually happened on the floor? Tell us about that.
Right, so it all came down to this session on July 1st, 2025. It was one of those Senate vote-a-ramas, where they vote on a ton of amendments back to back. And when the amendment came up to strip Section 43201, the AI moratorium, from the bill, the vote was 99-1.
Wait, 99-1? Are you serious?
99-1. It's almost unbelievable, that kind of margin in the Senate today. A stunning, stunning rebuke.
Who was the one? Do we know?
Senator Tom Tillis, Republican from North Carolina, was the lone vote against removing it, though there were reports later suggesting it might have actually been a mistaken vote.
Huh. Okay, regardless, 99-1, that's more than a defeat. That's a political statement.
Absolutely. It was a massive repudiation, not just of the tech industry's lobbying effort, but also a slapdown for the Senate Commerce Committee leadership who had backed the provision.
Had there been any attempt to find a middle ground before the vote? Any compromises offered?
Oh, yeah. There were weeks of trying to find a compromise, but nothing stuck. Senator Cruz, for instance. He proposed cutting the moratorium down from 10 years to 5. He even tried tying it to something popular, like federal broadband funding, trying to sweeten the deal. But none of it worked. The opposition was just too solid.
And the whole thing became kind of politically toxic, didn't it? I remember that quote from Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yes, that really caught fire.
Yeah.
Her public admission, basically saying she hadn't even known about the AI moratorium when she voted for the bill in the House. She said, full transparency, I did not know about this section. I am adamantly opposed to this, and it is a violation of state rights. That became a real rallying cry for the opponents.
Yeah, that highlighted how something so significant could get buried in such a huge bill, maybe without full scrutiny.
Exactly. It underscored the concerns about transparency and the sheer scope of the original bill, amplifying the pushback against that specific provision.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sheer landslide of this vote says it all. But what does it mean going forward? What precedents did this set?
Well, there are a couple of big ones, I think. First, it clearly demonstrated the power of state-level political action. It showed that states, when they mobilize together, especially on issues touching those core federalism principles, they can actually defeat even very well-funded, powerful industry lobbying campaigns in Washington. And that coalition that formed, the child safety groups, the state officials, the conservative federalists, it suggests any future attempts at broad federal AI preemption are likely to face really stiff resistance.
So, precedent 1, don't underestimate the states, especially when they team up.
Right. And precedent 2 is related. The whole debate really threw a spotlight on this kind of vacuum at the federal level when it comes to AI laws. Because there wasn't, and still isn't, a comprehensive federal framework for AI, the states have basically jumped in to fill that gap. They haven't waited around. They've been passing targeted laws on specific AI issues like deepfakes, algorithmic bias in hiring or lending, and again, child protection online.
And the timing here was key too, wasn't it? States were already very active by 2025.
Hugely active. By that point, there had been something like over 1,000 AI-related bills introduced in state legislatures and local governments across the U.S. So trying to just hit pause on all that state activity with a moratorium without offering any real federal alternative. The vote showed just how difficult, maybe politically impossible, that was.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, this vote wasn't just about one bill. It was a powerful statement about American federalism in the digital age.
I think that's exactly right. It established AI governance definitively as this major new political battleground. And it's a battleground where those old left-right divisions often don't neatly apply. Instead, you see these complex, sometimes unexpected coalitions forming around specific issues like child safety, states' rights, or tech competitiveness.
So what does this all mean for how AI will be governed moving forward? Because the moratorium failed spectacularly, but that underlying tension,
It's
it's
up.
still there, right?
Oh, absolutely. That tension between federal authority and state authority over regulating AI, that's not resolved at all. It's going to continue to be a major dynamic shaping American AI policy for the foreseeable future. This vote just set the stage. It didn't end the debate.
Right. So recapping here, the big beautiful bill, its AI moratorium, that was really the tech industry's biggest shot so far at preempting state AI rules.
Our most ambitious attempt, yeah.
But its failure, that stunning 99-1 defeat, it really showed the limits of trying to impose that kind of federal override in the age of AI, especially when states push back hard on grounds of federalism and safety.
It redrew some boundaries, certainly.
It cemented AI governance as this major political arena where the fight between DC and the states is going to play out again and again.
No doubt about it.
You know, it's funny, the phrase big beautiful bill, it probably won't be remembered for the tax cuts or the spending that eventually passed.
Probably not.
It's likely going to be remembered for this AI regulation fight it accidentally sparked, a fight that just showed how incredibly fast AI went from being this niche technical thing to a absolutely core political issue in America.
A fundamental governance challenge.
Yeah. So something for you to think about. How might the same dynamic states versus federal innovation versus regulation play out with other new technologies coming down the pike? And what role do you think states should have in governing innovation?